Hi, this is Barry here. So, what was the one thing that got in your way when you were starting your online business? I'll tell you what it was. It was me. Now, for a lot of different reasons, I was my biggest hurdle. I was my biggest obstacle. I was the one that was blocking my way. Now, if I was to probably come up with a couple of reasons of why that is, one of them was probably fear. I was worried. Again, if you've never created an online business, when it comes to writing, creating content, creating products, whatever, we are very, very fearful. And I was scared at the start. I was scared before I got into fiction writing, just to let you know how stupid this kind of fear was that I had. But before I got into fiction writing, I was afraid of what other people would think about me and the books that I wrote. You know, I wanted to write a book for a long time, but the reason I didn't write that book was because I was afraid of all these nameless, faceless people all over the world that I would never come in contact with, and I was afraid what they would think about me. Now, how crazy is it to think that other people all over the world who will never come in contact with you, who have their own lives, who have busy lives, who haven't, the time to pay attention to you. And yet, that's what I thought. I thought if I wrote that book, if I put content online, the whole world would stop and they would pay attention to me. And maybe you have that fear as well, which I know that I've said it. It sounds totally ridiculous, but in our own heads, we actually believe it. Again, too, when it comes to me being my own biggest kind of enemy, it was being unfocused. Go back a couple of years, I would focus on blogging for a couple of weeks and then drop it. I would have a look at some gimmick or something that was working on YouTube, I'd give it a go and then drop it. I'd have a look at maybe doing something on the Kindle store, do it for a while and drop it. And every time I was kind of creating all these kind of businesses that were, only a couple of days old or a couple of weeks old, and I would find, that I would lose interest in it and I just move on to the next thing. But when you think about it, like, how successful can you be if you only have, 5-minute businesses all over the place? Now, I joked a couple of times that probably if you'd gone back in time, you'd find loads of my dead websites, blogs, all those different things all over the all over the internet that I just simply dropped. So I was unfocused, and I found that the only reason that I actually became successful was when I knuckled down and focused on one thing only. Again, going back to the fiction writing, I think the longest I focused on fiction writing was probably for, a couple of days, a couple of weeks. But when I started writing my first fiction books, I actually focused on that for a couple of years. And I found that the more I focused on it, the more money I made, the more success I had, because I was building and building and building. It was almost like, a lot of us, unfortunately, we have so many options on the internet. You can do so many things, and we're like a kid in a sweet store. We're looking at all the different things we can do, and we don't focus on anything. But you look at offline businesses, you'll always find that a hairdresser will stay as a hairdresser. Someone who owns a bar will always have a bar. Someone who owns a store will always have a store. You'll never find them jumping around. And that's what you need to think about when it comes online. You need to focus on one thing until you're successful. You even look at Amazon. In the beginning, Amazon just simply focused on selling books. And they got so good at selling books that they kind of expanded from there. But again, stupidly at the time, I didn't realize that. And I thought maybe I could be successful after a couple of months and then retire on it. So again, that was my biggest mistake. So again, if I go back to probably my two biggest things that held me back was fear and being unfocused. Again, maybe you can relate to that. But what I would say to you is that if you're going to be successful in having an online business, it's going to be more kind of mental than anything else. Anyone can learn all the information. Anyone can buy the software. But if you haven't got your head kind of focused in the game, if you are scared of taking action, if you're afraid of what everybody's going to think about you, if you're focused and all over the shop, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. It doesn't matter how much, piece of software you have. It's going to be totally useless. So if I was to say something to you, if you are looking to build an online business, build yourself as well too. Don't neglect how you feel about yourself, your confidence, and always kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's probably another thing I discovered as well too that allowed me to be more successful, was getting out of my comfort zone. You'll never be successful with an online business staying the way you are. Now, you might make some money, but there will be a kind of glass ceiling that you can't actually go beyond because you're not willing to take bigger actions. You're not willing to step forward. You're not willing to maybe, record videos or do a podcast or do something that's going to be uncomfortable for a while. And if you stay in that kind of, that little box of yours, your earnings can't increase there. It's only outside whatever circle you have around you right now that you'll find the bigger audience, you know, the more money or whatever you're looking for. It's going to be outside your comfort zone, and you'll need to expand. You'll need to get out of there. But again, if I go back to what I was like a couple of years back, you know, I was constantly staying in my safe space. The thought of actually writing a fiction book and putting it out there, it totally kind of blew me away until I actually started doing it regularly, and then it just became normal to me. Again, that's why I'm doing these videos and doing these podcasts regularly as well too, because I'm pushing myself. You know, even going back 6 months ago, a year ago, being on camera and talking to you like this would be something that I just wouldn't be able to do regularly. I could do maybe a video once a week, or maybe, you know, maybe 2 in 1 week if you were lucky, but I couldn't do it regularly because I didn't have enough confidence in myself, or just had got the fear to sit down in front of this camera and actually start talking. So if I would say to you as well too, if you want to be successful, you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. Try things you've never done before. Don't be afraid of failure, because failure isn't a kind of an end point. It's an actually learning point. You always learn something from your failures, and you can take that learning lesson that you got from your failure, and then when you have your second attempt, you've got more knowledge. You've got that information in your back pocket, so that if your business the second time goes wrong, at least you have the knowledge from the first time to use it to help you in the second attempt. So as I said, if there is anything that's probably going to hold you back right now, it's going to be you more than whatever business you're using or whatever plan you have. It's going to be you that's going to let it down. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.